Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to head back to the 70s once again for a Stephen King TV miniseries. But before we get into it, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here. I greatly would appreciate that. Also, as always, a shameless plug for my TeePublic and my Zazzle store. I'll leave a link for both of those in the description box below. And today we're going to talk about a vampire movie. And that one is Salem's Lot. Yes, with the remake dropping on HBO Max recently, I figure I'm going to go back, re-review this. I'm going to actually re-review for the first time the 2004 version that aired on TNT, and I'm going to review the brand new remake that dropped on HBO Max. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I figured I was in the mood to revisit this bad boy, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just review them all. So we're going to do that over the next coming weeks for Halloween spooky season. So let's get into it. This film dropped on CBS November 17th of 1979. You think they would have did it during October for Halloween, but nope, it was in November right before Thanksgiving, and it had a budget of $4 million. Now, originally, this was conceived as a theatrical film, and none other than George A. Romero was going to write and direct this film. But they figured it was better off to adapt that novel through a TV miniseries than a theatrical film, so they decided to make it a TV movie. George Romero stepped away from it, and they brought Tobe Hooper in. Tobe Hooper was coming off of Texas Chainsaw in 74 and Eaten Alive in 76. And he came in, and they brought in a pretty good cast here. We got David Soul as Ben Mears. He's an author coming back to Salem's Lot, his original hometown. James Mason plays Richard Stryker. He is new to town as well, and he bought the Marston house, and him and his partner Barlow are opening up an antique store in town. Lance Kerwin plays Mark. He is this teenager in town who is basically following a lot in Ben's footsteps. He writes a lot, and he wrote the play for this year for school, and he likes horror stuff. He does figures and stuff like that. Bonnie Bedelia, yes, from Die Hard fame, plays Susan, her and Ben become sweet on each other. Jeffrey Lewis, the great character actor, plays Mike. He is the cemetery caretaker in this film. And Fred Willard makes an appearance. He's in this film as the real estate agent in town. Ned Flanders in this film as well. So this has a really good cast of solid actors that you've seen in other places, other roles over the years. Salem's Lot is basically about this small town in Maine, although this was shot in Ferndale, California. Ben is returning to Salem's Lot to write a book about the Marston house. This house that looms over the town up on the hill. You can see it from every spot in town. You can see this house. And Ben remembers this as a child, and it's haunted him all these years. And he's been a novelist for quite some time, and he's decided his new novel is going to be about the Marston house. So he comes back to rent a room, and him and Susan meet, and they start up a relationship, and he starts up hanging out with his old teacher from high school. And all of a sudden, people start disappearing. Children start disappearing. People start getting sick and dying. And pretty soon they figure out that it's vampires. After some time, it's trying to take over the lot. And before we know it, we're down to Ben and Mark, and they have to fight off the Nosferatu Barlow character, which is different from the novel. I never read the novel, but I know enough about it to know that they changed it up. But I love the design of the vampire. They take out Barlow, but there's more vampires left. They take out Barlow and Stryker, but there's more vampires left, and they hit the road at the end of the movie. And Susan got turned, and right at the end, Ben kills Susan, stakes her through the heart, and him and Mark have to hit the road once again because the vampires are in pursuit, and that's the end of Salem's Lot. What to like about this film? The atmosphere, the way it's shot for a TV movie. God, I miss good TV movies. And there were so many in the 70s and 80s, good TV movies. You could tell there was a lot of love and care taken with this film. Tobe Hooper does a really nice job setting the tone early and often. Now, this is the 3-hour cut, the original cut that aired. There was a shorter cut, a little under 2 hours, that actually got a theatrical release in some territories and around the world. And I've seen that one, but I prefer the 3-hour cut. I know Stephen King, I think, prefers to cut down the 2-hour version, but I prefer this version. Yes, it's long. 3 hours is a long time to sit through a horror movie, but I appreciate the build-up. You get to know about this small town. It reminds me of my small town a lot that I grew up in. You get to know about, the people, the different characteristics of some of these folks, what they're going through in their lives, and then it starts amping up the vampire action and amping up the creepiness until we get that finale. And I think Toby Hooper does a nice job building to something. And the vampire makeup on Barlow, I absolutely love. I know in the book, he's more of like an aristocratic type guy, well-dressed, well-spoken. And I know that's the angle they went for in the 2004 version. I prefer the Monsters vampire in this one. I think he's creepy. He looks badass. And they keep him in the shadows. He doesn't have, I think he only has 90 seconds of screen time throughout the whole film. Matter of fact, doing some research, there was more scenes filmed with Barlow that they cut out. And he was left with 90 seconds of screen time. But they're used for maximum impact in those 90 seconds. So, you know, would I have liked more of them? I sure would have. But I think we get enough other creepy event. The kids coming to the window, which was done without wires. The kids were put on a boom crane. So, because they knew they weren't going to be able to hide the wires. Even with the fog and the lighting, they weren't going to be able to do it. So Toby Hooper's idea was to put them on a boom crane up to the windows. And that way they can come through the windows without having the wires as be a problem. And then he shot some of it in reverse to give that eerie-like quality, and they still hold up to this day. They truly, truly do. Those scenes are still creepy as hell. And the eyes glowing, Jeffrey Lewis sitting in the rocking chair when he's found, and he opens his eyes. I love that scene. Still holds up incredibly, incredibly well. I just really like this film. Are there any downsides? Yeah, 3 hours. Yeah, I was never bored watching it, but I could see how some people would be and would prefer the 2-hour cut to the 3-hour cut. But I think there's a lot of characterization, a lot of story buildup in those 3 hours, and it just works for me. I love the small town atmosphere. The Marsden house itself, they were looking for a house on a hill, and in Ferndale they did have one, but it wasn't big enough. So there was a small house up on the hill, and they spent $100,000 building a real life-size facade that you see in the movie over the smaller house to give the house the look that it needed for the film. And I love the set design inside the house. That cost another $70,000. I love the animalistic, like there's mounted heads everywhere and there's feathers all over the floor and bones. It's very reminiscent of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, Leatherface's house, and I really like the way it looks, and it looks great even to this day. At the end of the day, this is just a classic old school style vampire movie with classical scares, build up, mood, tension, and lighting. And watching this again last night, I just appreciate what they were going for, and I think they pulled off extremely well. And I just really like this movie. This was one of the first VHSs I ever bought with my own money back in the 90s. There was a video store going out of business. I've said this before, and I bought 3 movies that day. Salem's Lot was one of them. I had this great big clam case. I wish I still had it, but unfortunately I got rid of it when I moved to Arizona years ago. And then I bought Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. But I used to watch this movie a lot, especially around Halloween time. And I was in the mood to rewatch it, and I still think it holds up incredibly well, for me anyway. And at the end of the day, I would give this version of Salem's Lot, a 9.5 out of 10. I like it that much. 9.5 out of 10 for the 1979 version of Salem's Lot. What are your thoughts on this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with some more reviews. But until next time, bye.